I'm Julie O'Malley, your host, and welcome to the March 2006 episode of IHN Independent Horror News. Coming up, we have a special interview with Timothy Muscatel, star of The Ghouls, Hell Asylum, and many more. Erica Doring reviews Fungicide, and this month's DVD forecast. But first, our top stories. Fangoria announced that the script for Dario Argento's third Mother film, rounding out the trilogy started with Suspiria and continuing to Inferno, has been completed. Penned by the screenwriters of Tobe Hooper's Toolbox Murders, the film is tentatively entitled Exhumed. Dimension Films has announced that Eli Roth is set to direct the screen adaptation of Stephen King's new novel Cell as soon as he wraps up Hostel 2. Insider reports tell us that the new Lloyd Kaufman-directed trauma pick Poultrygeist is nearing the end of post-production and should see a release sometime this year. Also, we hear that Chris Seaver of Filthy McNasty and Scrotal Vengeance fame is set to direct Troma's new Dolphin Man film. Variety reports that Movie Eye Entertainment, Filmco Entertainment, and Five Star Productions have teamed up for the $2.5 million horror anthology piece Black Knight. Although distribution in numerous Asian markets has already been set, a U.S. deal has yet to be signed. The film, already finishing post-production, is scheduled to premiere at the Hong Kong Film Festival this month. Also of interest, beginning April 2nd at midnight, the Sundance Channel will begin running a showcase series featuring films from the new wave of Asian horror. The series kicks off with the U.S. television premiere of director Ji-Woon Kim's A Tale of Two Sisters. In other news, Jonathan Liebesman, director of the upcoming Texas Chainsaw Massacre Origin and Darkness Falls, is rumored to be directing the new Friday the 13th film, which the producers have stated, although it's a reworking of the film, a la the current onslaught of remakes, it will definitely star a hockey mask-wearing Jason as the killer and take place at the famed Crystal Lake. Those are our headlines, and now this month's DVD forecast.
This is your March DVD forecast. Coming out the week of March 7th, we have Lloyd at it again with Troma's release of Dumpster Baby, as well as new discs of Cannibal the Musical and Toxic Avenger. Lionsgate's going to release Breaking Dawn. A18 Corp is going to release Crimson Climax, Island of Sin. Asia Vision, Urban Vision, and Ventura will release Curse, Death, and Spirit. We are also going to see Hallowed by Visual Entertainment and UMVD. Anchor Bay is going to put out new discs for The Hills Have Eyes and Near Dark. Animego is going to release Portrait of Hell. And Grimoire Music Video Distribution gives us Rape is a Circle. Coming to you guys the week of March 14th, we've got Brain Damage and Razor Digital releasing Death Becomes Them, Machine Head, and the two-disc set Evil as Hell. And that's going to include Demons in My Head, To Become One, Goth, and Death Factory. Visual Entertainment and UMVD release Harvest of Fear. Shriek Show and Media Blasters bring us Secret Recipe and the three-disc set Jungle of Horrors, which includes Jungle Holocaust, Eaten Alive, and Massacre in Dinosaur Valley. Tartan and TLA release Marabito this week. Tokyo Shock and Media Blasters bring us Neighbor Number 13, and Creep FX and Maverick release Woods of Evil.
We'll be right back with more of the DVD forecast in this month's exclusive interview.
You're not laughing.
Shoot her! I ain't sticking around for the fuck that was to come back.
I'll fucking scalp you! Give me your hand! Oh, Dark Lord! I said what, bitch?
I'm Tim Muscatel, and you're watching IHN Independent Horror News.
Coming the week of March 21st, we've got Velocity releasing The Choke. Freestyle and UMVD release Headspace. Lionsgate has House of the Dead 2 coming out. Tempe brings us the 2-disc release, Night Creatures, with The Feral Man and Ghoul School. Brentwood releases the 2-disc set, Slasher Cinema with The Demon Craze, The Glove, and Memorial Valley Massacre. First Look releases Snake Man, which is also called The Snake King, and Warner releases the complete 3rd season of Tales from the Crypt, and that's a 3-disc set. For the week of March 28th, York releases Asylum Night, Blue Underground releases The Fifth Chord, The Black Belly of the Tarantula, The Pajama Girl Case, and The Forbidden Photos of a Lady Above Suspicion. Razor Digital brings us Conjure, Pendulum Pictures releases Crazed Killers with The Day of the Axe, Toe Tags, and Kill the Scream Queen. MPI releases the 4-disc set Dark Shadows, Collection 23. Mondo Macabro releases Don't Deliver Us from Evil. Hillside Cannibals will be released by Asylum. Dark Sky releases The Horror of Party Beach, Curse of the Living Corpse. Psychomania, also known as Violent Midnight, and the 1st season of The Invisible Man. Pendulum Pictures releases Hostile Hauntings with The Shunned House, Woodland Haunting 2, and Sleep Disorder. Subversive releases Joel M. Reed's Bloodbath. Psycho and MTI bring us Kibakichi 2. Anchor Bay, they've been busy this week, brings us 2 separate Masters of Horror episodes, Cigarette Burns and Dreams in the Witch House. Sony Pictures releases Ring Around the Rosie. Pendulum Pictures releases Savage Sickos with Demon Slaughter, Dead Body Man, and Serial Killer. Shriek Show Media Blasters brings us the R-rated special edition of Shadow Dead Riot, with the unrated 2-disc special edition to follow this fall. Vanguard releases Sleep Paralysis. SRS Cinema releases Snake Woman. Lionsgate releases 2001 Maniacs. And Image closes out the month with the release of the Spanish film Vampiros. Thanks for visiting Independent Horror News, and see you next month.
Thanks for that. There are a few titles there that will end up on my shelf this month. Coming up, we have an exclusive interview with Hell Asylum's Timothy Muscatel. But first, here's this month's movie review.
Hi, this is Erica Doring with IHN, Independent Horror News, and the movie that I reviewed this month is Fungicide, available on a DVD collection of independent horror movies called Drenched in Blood. It's definitely worth seeing. It starts out a little slow, like a lot of these movies do. We meet the mad scientist character who lives in his parents' basement. There's a little interaction between him and his parents that is sort of useless. We see the mad scientist guy like stirring his magic potion, but then he stirs the magic potion for like, you know, a good 5 minutes of stirring. A lot of stirring takes place in the first part of the movie. But don't worry, be patient, it pays off later. He is going mad, so I guess he decides to take a little mini vacation, and he ends up at this bed and breakfast run by this girl out of her apartment, which I think is a pretty good, you know, entrepreneurial idea for this lady to be running a bed and breakfast out of her place. So he ends up there, and while he's going to go in there and like knock on the door, he drops his little experimental poison and it goes underneath the porch. So we don't know really what he was planning on doing before that with the poison, but I'm sure he was up to no good. So he goes inside, decides he wants to get a room there. She seems a little crazy and starts having premonition like flashes about the garden. And then, by the way, she has other premonitions for about the first, like, her first maybe 15 minutes, and then never has them again, never explains, wow, I'm having weird premonitions. It doesn't really get mentioned, but that's okay. She has other people that end up staying there while this is all happening. This real estate guy comes over, and he wants to stay there, and he rents the room from her, and he, like, tells her how he wants her to sell the house, and she doesn't want to sell the house. And then he lets her know that he's been trying to get someone to sell this house, like, since her parents were around. And then before that, when her grandparents were around. But the guy's only like 40 years old, so I'm not really sure if he was doing this when he was like 1 or what exactly, and it doesn't really seem to matter anyways because that part of the story goes nowhere. We have another character shows up who's a reality TV character. His name is Major Wang, and he's outside being filmed by like one guy for the reality TV show in the garden, and he's like fighting to get out of the garden and ends up at the bed and breakfast. Let's see, who's our next person? This wrestler guy who shows up. He's a wrestler, just wants to take a break from it all at the bed and breakfast, and he also happens to have a medical problem, spontaneous combustion. So that's his medical problem, which that's kind of funny. And he also really loves himself and like sets up in his room like pictures of himself wrestling. So I like that character a lot. He's pretty cool. Then the mushrooms start to slowly like reproduce, because you know they reproduce with their own spores or something, and that's kind of exciting. And the mushrooms are starting to get bigger and bigger. And then there's this one scene, probably one of my favorite scenes, is when one of the mushrooms start killing people, and they're cute and they're like kind of sock puppets and they have teeth and everything, and that's pretty awesome. They start killing people, and one of the mushrooms comes in, and the mad scientist guy is like overjoyed to see his like baby mushroom like, you know, coming to life. And he spends some quality time with one of his mushroom babies in the kitchen. They sit down, they play like video games together, they have a little, you know, chat, have a little dinner. It's really sweet. And then the mushrooms are starting to get bigger, and now they're no longer like sock puppet size. So now it's just like sheets, like with like maybe Chinese mushroom shaped hats, but with gray sheets over them. And that was kind of cool. And then at some point the mushrooms get turned into, they use a lot of computer graphics, and the graphics are pretty terrible. So they need to do something to retaliate. Well, it just so happens that Major Wang happens to have a suitcase full of guns. So he lets everybody have some guns, and we see some pretty kick-ass action sequences happen in the backyard between this gang of 5 people, or not the mad scientist guy. He's all for keeping the mushrooms alive. So he gets tied up in a chair in the kitchen while we see the other 4 go and try to, you know, do a little mushroom ass kicking, basically, is what happens. And then the guy who has the spontaneous combustion problem that he's been taking medication for decides to, well, basically he acts like a martyr and decides that he's gonna like allow himself to combust on behalf of the cause and killing the mushrooms. So he doesn't take his medication, and then he combusts. So it's more like not spontaneous combustion, it's more like a real planned and calculated human combustion. So that's pretty awesome. That was definitely a good scene. And definitely on a scale of 1 to 10, I would give Fungicide probably 7.5. Okay, so this has been Erica Doring for IHN. Bye!
That sounds like a great date movie. And now IHN is caught up with the elusive genre actor, Timothy Muscatel.
Hello, we are here with Timothy Muscatel, who just got finished production on Easter Bunny Kill Kill. Tell us a little bit about that production, Tim.
Easter Bunny Kill Kill is about a wolf in sheep's clothing. He befriends this single mother who has a mentally disabled son. And as soon as this woman goes to work, he is physically abusive to the retarded kid. And it's sort of a contemporary Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde story. And that's pretty much Easter Bunny Kill Kill Kill. It's got a very high body count, and it's directed by the very talented Chad Farron, who I've worked with 2 times before. This is our 3rd film together.
Yes, you did Ghouls with
I did Ghouls with him, and many years ago I did a film called Unspeakable, where I played a dual role. I also did an episode of Trauma's HTV that was directed by Chad as well. Very talented guy. I'd work with him any day of the week for nothing.
Now, you've played some very interesting characters in your past, from scatophilic nurses to news stringers to satanic serial killers. What draws you to the type of roles you play?
They're usually the parts that my friends write for me. Someday they'll write a nice part for me where I play a nice guy. I've played a nice guy before in a film called Holy Hollywood with Mickey Rooney that nobody seems to want. Because nobody wants to see that. They want to see the bad guy. And bad guys are the funnest parts to play, aren't they?
Now you've also done some more mainstream work.
Virus with Nicolette Sheridan and William Devane. It was a movie of the week on NBC based on Robin Cook's Outbreak. But they had to change the title because another movie that year with Dustin Hoffman came out called Outbreak, and they had to change it to Virus. It's about the only time I actually had a trailer, by the way.
Do you prefer the independent films over the big budget studio productions?
Oh, of course. So much more freedom. Lots more freedom.
What's your best on-set experience?
This one was probably the best one. Easter Bunny Kill 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 went the smoothest. We're really starting to hit our stride now as filmmakers, and I think each film is getting better. And it's definitely this film is probably the best one so far. I didn't hurt myself this time. I usually come away with some sort of injury.
Thanks for spending some time with IHN.
No problem, anytime.
That about wraps up this month's IHN Independent Horror News. Until next month, have a bloody good time at the movies.